shape. Before they get the pace, get the beats was the same. Was a piece of dreaming big, was playing safe. Dreaming big and shit my days. What a way some would say. Get away from the race. Enjoying a day to day. Mundane commonplace. They told me you're too different to be a shape. But put you in a box if you a Cuban in some case. Now to sleeping out awake, face to face with second rate. I'm ashamed of the weight, I'm staying in this race. Yet can I get away from the way you proclaim? Fall off on my fate and my face. Set apart to a state. It's a way of life, not a saying to display in the case. What a waste to chase all of my days away while letting my dreams become an application of Mondays. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, fell in the space, yeah. Enveloped the grace. I developed this taste for this wonderful maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, fell in the space, yeah. Enveloped the grace. I developed this taste for this wonderful maze. Said right, Tony. Said alright, only if I would've heard when you said, let me guide Tony. So the pen ink so leaked, I free wrote. What was me? I wasn't all that free though. See though I can write, doesn't mean I write well. That all depends on the story I tell. The truth is vital. Met you in and out, to my world upside down, and I'm hanging for the towels, and I like it more. If I was walking up right before, there's a measure to the heights I saw. Gravity tries to immobilize the force. I was born to fight like a pilot with a sword itself. I'll never settle for less than the best. Truth, death to the flesh. I'll live like the testament says. No need to wonder, you're the author of the book. Go and take your Pulitzer. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, around in the space, yeah. Enveloped in grace. I developed this taste for this wonderful maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, around in the space, yeah. Enveloped in grace. I developed this taste for this wonderful maze. But alas, wait, with a plan to make a man of me, a man to make a noise in the void. There's so much at stake. Live the dream while I'm awake as a means to display how Almighty God can make a mighty statement. With the lonely man with his knees to the pavement. I wonder why before all my years are wasted, but I've tasted and seen what's to come today. I'll taste it. The lies bright from the bite of the light, the sun righteous man that I've been. That's why I write this like lies on the line. Slots in these eyes, I dive into the Bible. So we all thirst, seeking to find this meaning of life. It's bleeding us right. It's worth all the time. It's making us timeless. It's the last song to write when we write beyond time straight. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, dwell in the space, yeah. Enveloped the grace. I developed this taste for this wonderful maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, dwell in the space, yeah. Enveloped the grace. I developed this taste for.
All right, here I am, beginning another Let's Chat session. It is 10 o'clock a.m. Central Standard Time. Some people sit here and talk for a while. Apparently, that's a thing. I'm not super interested in just talking to myself, so I will be here for anyone who wants to jump in and chat either through the comments or jumping on. I am trying to focus this into the Randos United channel, just so that it's not particular to anyone's stream or everybody knows who's being shared with. So if you want to see these, you want to see more of these, subscribe to the Randos United channel. You can also subscribe to my channel because I'll keep it there as well. I believe mine is probably much smaller. But if you want to know when I'm doing these, I'll try to do these daily at 10 a.m., but there will be some weeks or days that I can't. So, yeah, I will continue working until somebody jumps on to join me.
While I'm awake as a means to display how a mighty God can make a mighty statement. With the lonely man with his knees to the pavement. I wonder why before all my years are wasted. But I've tasted and seen what's to come today, I'll taste it. The light is bright, bright from the bite of the light, the sun, righteous man that I've been. That's why I write this like lives on the line. Clocks in these eyes, let's dive into the Bible. So we all thirst, seeking to find this meaning of life. It's bleeding us right, it's worth all the time. It's making us timeless. It's the last song to write when we write beyond time's script. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, I fell in the space. Yeah, enveloped the grace. I developed the space for this wonderful maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, I dwell in the space. Yeah, enveloped the grace. I developed the space for this wonderful maze. For the days before the malaise, before the unaffordable payment rates take shape, before they get the pay, skip the beats was a state. Was a piece of dreaming big was play safe. Dreaming big and shit my days. What a waste, some would say. Get away from the race. Enjoying a day to day, mundane commonplace. They told me you're too different to be a shape. We'll put you in a box if you were cute, but it's a case. Not asleep, not awake. Face to face, second rate. I'm ashamed of the weight, I'm staying in this race. Yet can I get away from the way you proclaim fall off on my fate and my face set apart to a state. It's a way of life, not a saying to display in the case. What a waste to chase all of my days away while letting my dreams become another case of the Mondays. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, I dwell in the space. Yeah, enveloped the grace. I developed the space for this wonderful maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, I dwell in the space. Yeah, enveloped the grace. I developed the space for this wonderful maze. Said right, Tony. Said alright, only if I would've heard when you said, let me guide Tony. Still the pen ink so leaked, I free wrote. What was me, I wasn't all that free though. See though I can write, doesn't mean I write well. Then other pants on the story I tell. Truth is vital, met you in and out. Turn my world upside down and now I'm hanging for the towels. And I like it more, if I was walking up right before. There's a measure to the heights I saw. Gravity tries to immobilize the force. I was born to the fight like a pilot with a sword itself. I'll never settle for less than the best suit left to the flesh. I'll live like the testament says. No need to wonder, you're the author of the book. Go and take your Pulitzer. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, I dwell in the space. Yeah, enveloped the grace. I developed the space for this wonderful maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place. Hey, I dwell in the space. Yeah, enveloped the grace. I developed the space for this wonderful maze. But alas, wait, with a plan to make, a man to me, a man to make a noise in the void. There's so much at stake. Live the dream while I'm awake as a means to display how a mighty God can make a mighty statement. With the lonely man with his knees to the pavement. I wonder why before all my years are wasted. But I've tasted and seen what's to come today, I'll taste it. The light is bright, bright from the bite of the light, the sun, righteous man that I've been. That's why I write this like lives on the line. Clocks in these eyes, let's dive into the Bible. So we all thirst, seeking to find this meaning of life. It's bleeding us right, it's worth all the time. It's making us timeless. It's the last song to write when we write beyond time's script. Hey, although I fell on my face,
take the bad away, keep up and use it. Good.
If I would've heard when you said, let me guide Tony. So the pen ink so leaked, I free room. What was me, I wasn't all that free though. See though I can write, doesn't mean I write well. Then other pants on the story I tell. Truth is vital, met you in and out. Turn my world upside down and now I'm hanging for the towels. And I like it more, if I was walking up right before. There's a measure to the heights I saw. Gravity tries to immobilize the force. I was born to fight like a pilot with a score to settle. I'll never settle for less than the best suit, less to the flesh. I'll live like the testament says. So no need to wonder you, the author of the book, go and take your Pulitzer. Although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made around in mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one new amaze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made around in mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one new amaze. But alas, wait, what a plan to make a man of me, a man to make a noise in the void. There's so much at stake. Live the dream while I'm awake as a means to display how a mighty God can make a mighty statement. With the lonely man with his knees to the pavement. I wonder why before all my years are wasted, but I've tasted and seen what's to come today. I'm tasting. The line's bright from the bite of the like the sun, righteous man that I've been. That's why I write these like lives on the line. Clocks in these eyes, let's dive into the Bible. So we all thirst, seeking to find this meaning of life. It's bleeding us right. It's worth all the time. It's making us timeless. It's the last song to write when we write beyond time. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made around in mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one new amaze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made around in mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one new amaze. For the days before the malaise, before the unaffordable payment rates take shape, before they get the pay, skip the beats was a state. Was a piece of dreaming big, was playing safe. Dreaming big and share my days. What a way some would say. Get away from the race. Enjoying a day to day, mundane commonplace. They told me you're too different to be a shape. We'll put you in a box if you accuse in this case. Not to sleep, but not awake. Face to face with second rate. I'm ashamed of the weight I'm insane in this race. Yet can I get away from the way you proclaim? Fall off on my fate and my face. Set apart to a state. It's a way of life, not a saying to display in the case. What a waste. The only if I would've heard when you said, let me guide Tony. So the pen ink so leaked, I free room. What was me, I wasn't all that free though. See though I can write, doesn't mean I write well. That all depends on the story I tell. Truth is vital, met you in and out. Turn my world upside down and now I'm hanging for the tiles. And I like it more, if I was walking up right before. There's a measure to the heights I saw. Gravity tries to immobilize the force. I was born to fight like a pilot with a score to settle. I'll never settle for less than the best suit. Death to the flesh, I'll live like the testament says. No need to wonder, you're the author of the book. Go and take your Pulitzer. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made overwhelming mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one loop of maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made overwhelming mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one loop of maze. But alas, wait, what a plan to make. A man of me, a man to make. A noise in the void, there's so much at stake. Live a dream while I'm awake as a means to display how a mighty God can make a mighty statement. With the only man with his knees to the pavement. I wonder why before all my years are wasted. But I've tasted and seen what's to come today, I'll taste it. The line's bright from the bite of the life of sun. Righteous man that I've been. That's why I write this like lives on the line. Slots in these lines, let's dive into the vibe. Get so we all thirst, seeking to find this meaning of life. It's bleeding us right. It's worth all the time. It's making us timeless. It's the last song to write when we write beyond time straight. Hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made overwhelming mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one loop of maze. And I want, hey, although I fell on my face, it fell in the place. Look, I dwell in this place, made overwhelming mistakes. Yet enveloped in grace, I developed this taste for this one loop of maze. Oh, I wonder. Yo, I'm not conforming, no contortionist. I'm aboard in this mission. I play me like I'm in a body in the water with wide array of purposes. Unfortunate, these lies that cannot hold me back from the truth. I choose the path I'm headed in, no questioning, no pressing. I pass the lies and the crevices. The wrinkles down with mentioning. I'm best within, I'm best because these lies that cannot hold me. Feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies. I fight to the bottom lies. So lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies. I fight to the bottom lies. They say to get in where you fit and I'll throw a fit and get living. Go and get out evicted, don't color outside the limits. Lies that holding in prison, I am soul and infinite. And these lies that cannot hold me. I know I'm aging when lies start to scar and lay up. My face, a human race, bordering life is carbon paper. Less than impressive, use of success, impress on you with lies that cannot hold me. Feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies. I fight to the bottom lies. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies. I fight to the bottom lies. What defines me? Oh, alive. Be the days I'm walking blindly at the timely age of 95. We need to take a fight. Realize we might be fighting with ourselves within the lines that we've drawn inside these lives. We're living in a pipe dream. Need to get outside the boundaries and realize we got freedom at our fingertips. Get a grip into sight. See ourselves beyond the lines. More than fine, certified free. Feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies. I fight to the bottom lies. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies. I fight to the bottom lies. lion drew a line and the sand he crossed the line and said, all you understand to be actually is in a fight with what I am actually. Compassion seems out of mind. You never mind it going so cast and draw the line. And the side is minus me, at least as far as I can see. But as far as I can see, my arm can reach so far to me. You ain't far enough, no matter the height, the bar is up. I can jump, I have come to fight and to finalize the love. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. Yo, I'm not conforming, no contortionist. I'm aboard in this mission and play me like I'm in a accordion, no water with wide array of purposes. Unfortunate, these lines that can't hold me back from the truth. I choose the path I'm headed in, I'm questioning, no pressing, I pass the lines that are crevices. The wrinkles I'm within it, I'm best within, I'm best because these lines that can't hold me. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. They say to get in where you fit and I'll throw a fit and get living. Go and get out evicted, don't color outside the limits. Lines that hold it in prison, I am soul and infinite. And these lines that cannot hold me. I know I'm aging when lines start to scar and lay up. My face, a human race, is bordering life is carbon paper. Less than impressive, use of success, impress on you with lines that cannot hold me. Feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. What defines me? Oh, alive, be the days I'm walking blindly at the timely age of 95. We need to take a fight, realize we might be fighting with ourselves within the lines that we've drawn inside these lives. We're living in a pipe dream. Need to get outside the boundaries and realize we got freedom at our fingertips. Get a grip into sight, see ourselves beyond the lines, more than fine, certified free. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. When the lion drew a line and the sand he crossed the line and said, all you understand to be actually is in a fight with what I am actually. Compassion seems out of mind. You never mind it going so cast and draw the line. And the side is minus me, at least as far as I can see. But as far as I can see, my arm can reach so far to me. You ain't far enough, no matter the height, the bar is up. I can jump, I have come to fight and to finalize the love. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lines, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. Yo, I'm not conforming, no contortionist. I'm aboard in this mission and play me like I'm in a accordion, no water with wide array of purpose. since I'm fortunate. These lines that can't hold me back from the truth. I choose the path I'm headed in, I'm questioning, no pressing, I pass the lies and the references. The wrinkles down with mentioning. I'm best within, I'm best because these lines that can't hold me. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies, I fight to the bottom lies. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies, I fight to the bottom lies. They say to get in where you fit and I'll throw a fit and get living. Go and get out evicted, don't color outside the limits. Lies that hold in prison, I am soul and infinite. And these lies that cannot hold me. I know I'm aging when lines start to scar and lay up. My face, a human race is bordering life is carbon paper. Less than impressive, use of success, impress on you with lies that cannot hold me. Feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies, I fight to the bottom lies. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies, I fight to the bottom lies. What defines me? Who alive? Be the days I'm walking blindly at the timely age of 95. We need to take a fight, realize we might be parting with ourselves within the lines that we've drawn inside these lives. We're living in a pipe dream. Need to get outside the boundaries and realize we got freedom at our fingertips. Get a grip into sight, see ourselves beyond the lines, more than fine, certified free. Feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies, I fight to the bottom lies. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lies, I fight to the bottom lies. When the lion drew a line and the sandy crossed the line and said, all you understand to be actually's in a fight with what I am actually. Compassion seems out of mind. You never mind it going, so casting and draw the line. And the side is minus me, at least as far as I can see. But as far as I can see, my arm can reach so far to me. You ain't far enough, no matter the height the bar is up. I can jump, I have come to fight in the bottom lines of love. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. Lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines. I said lately, feels like I'm running out of time. Every time I see these lies, oh, I fight to the bottom lines, I fight to the bottom lines.
Let's do something new.
Survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say here for survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say they call me criminal cause I'm breaking the law. Across the border with the saw, with the best of the jaw. Met coyotes with 40s, they told me to crawl. Never walk through the desert, you'll be seen by the guards. It would have been better to rap with the sharks. Hitting Cuba in the dark and leaving the dark. Undercover, and guiding the stars. But be careful of the moon, it might reveal your plot. From Rio Grande to the block, from IDL to the march. Groceries in the hands cause we feeling the knocks. And some facing home overcome with the shock. And since 9/11 we've been hunted like dogs. Fled our motherland cause the conditions are starved. But they call us spies like we killers with plots. But reality is rock. about work and you respect my spot. Here for survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say here for survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say access denied from the first moment I tried to flee from the filthy debris of the land I reside in. Provided all the proper papers to stay for the long haul. Put the law aside of the stretch and give me the strong arm. Long gone from the state of my birthplace. Time for plan B, cause my scenario was worst case. If someone would've recognized cries of a hurt face, I never would've had to leave my country in the first place. I'm faced with limited options and choices, so it seems I'm forced to become one of the voiceless. I avoid confrontation at all costs. I don't wanna get tossed to that border I once crossed. Though I'm exhausted from main stairs and profiles. When I look back, I know it'll all be worthwhile. So I smile and sweat to get by. Cause my purpose here is something I just can't let die. Here for survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say here for survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road. Say here for survival, not survival. We don't deny you, don't deny us. We're just survivors walking this lonely road.
All right, right now it says 2 people are watching. One of them, I assume, would be Jacob. I don't know who the other one is, and there was a couple people watching before. Any of those viewing interested in chatting it up? Or asking any questions to the comments. Otherwise, I'll probably stick on here another 5 minutes or so in case anybody decides they want to leave a comment, ask a question, jump on. Then I'll just log off. Morning, Jacob.
Are you the Reverend Pacheco?
The Reverend. Should I include that in my title?
Yeah, it's really hard to get people's attention, and the algorithm, like, it doesn't tell people that you're on. So
you're just really good at getting people's attention.
Well, my channel, this is part of the problem. The channel is, and this is part of why I wanted something like the 24/7 channel.
Yeah.
Because that way we're no longer at the behest of the algorithm.
Mm.
You know, and trying to switch people over from my channel to your channel or to anybody else's channel, it's difficult. Especially because people show up in order to kind of to chat with the other people as well, and it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I figure it's one of those things where as soon as I can get a few people, and I'm just experimenting with different ways of doing this, but once you get a few people that like will jump on, others will kind of follow suit just because, oh, there's Chad or there's whoever.
Yeah.
But part of it is that a lot of them are used to a certain degree, it seems, the impression I get from today is they're used to kind of just seeing it coming from your channel.
Right. And, well, I mean, just the bot that I have pinging my Discord server when I go on.
Oh, yeah. So explain that to me. How does that work? Because I was talking with Adam, and he had mentioned that. I don't fully understand what that means, how that works. The bot.
So bots are just automated computer programs that do things. And on Discord, there are lots of different bots, one of which will check particular channels, and whenever they go on, will put in an announcement. So whenever there's a live stream on my channel, this bot automatically sends an alert on my Discord. And actually, Grim ended up leaving my Discord because he couldn't get the bot to stop notifying him. Usually you can turn it off, and there was something wrong with it, and he's like, screw this, and he left the entire server.
Sounds like he left Twitter as well.
Well, this is
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah. This is Grim. Grim is a interesting person.
I'm finding there's a lot of interesting people over here.
Uh,
So I got a couple of, or a few different Protestant rappers that I'm currently reaching out to about the whole Jerusalem thing.
okay. How's the paperwork coming along? Are we gonna get something on the 24th or no?
I think so. So I've put together a bit of a mission statement, kind of based on some of the stuff that you had sent me.
Okay.
And so I've sent that over to all the proposed directors.
Okay.
Hey, okay, do we need to tweak this a bit? How do you feel about this? And then once I have that solidified, hopefully by today, maybe tomorrow morning, then I'll just get the paperwork going for that incorporation. I have a couple of legal advisors working with me on that end. So yeah, we should have this done by Friday.
Ooh, sounds good. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a few other conversations that need to be had around membership, etc., what that'll look like. But I think, the base, we'll have all the basics outlined at least, and the incorporation done by Friday.
Wow. Okay, this is going much better than I had feared. But I'm an anxious person, so.
Yeah, and like I said, I do really well with big picture stuff, and then it's more like, okay, well, now I have to get a few details so that I can get the conversation going, especially among the board of directors, to start hammering out the details. And part of it was there's a guy, Dan, that's been part of this little corner that I really, really wanted on the board, he and his wife.
Okay.
And that's, I think I have him right on the edge. He wanted to see the mission statement, but I think I've got him. I think we'll see.
Okay.
And maybe
I don't know who these board members are. So.
Well, I think that really several of them are the ones that you sent to me. I mean, I really want to pursue Catherine. Adam, we've talked quite a bit about it as a possibility. I do want Chezi, but I want to see what he thinks of the mission statement and whether or not he can jump on board with that. Somebody I'm really considering for the board because he has a very interesting network and is really attentive to everything is really CW. I've asked him about it. He hasn't gotten back yet, but
yeah, I did. I didn't know if CW. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, frankly, just as long as there's enough of this little corner representation.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people lurking in the background, and yeah, it's a matter of making sure that there's buy-in from the loud people.
Mm-hmm.
CW actually would be a good part of that because despite not being loud enough, he is he's enough of a known name.
Yeah, and he pays attention. Like he knows who everybody is, and kind of like can give the summaries of who they are. He's been really helpful for me.
Well, when we're not talking, when we're talking, the music's pretty low. I think most people will just ignore it.
Yeah, I try.
I keep on telling CW too much thinking, not enough doing. Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing I always find interesting is figuring out who these people are. Who's the
Chris Pacal? Chris, I don't know why Chris doesn't jump on more often. Well, I mean, he's a painter, so he probably has all this stuff going while he's painting.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got a baby, and he's got a wife, and so he can't just sit around and talk online like I do all the time.
Yeah, you have a lot of time for that kind of stuff.
Well, I spend a lot of time doing it. I don't know if I have a lot of time, but I spend a lot of time.
Yeah. It's tricky. I mean, so certainly you got to prioritize things because I mean, like even for me, you know, I got 3 kids, a wife. I'm a pastor. I sell real estate. I'm pretty active in my like community. I'm in seminary, and so it's like.
And I have no life, so.
Yeah, well, I think that's one of the things that's helpful for me is that my kids are young, so I don't really have a whole lot of like friends that I spend time with because the kids kind of prevent that anyway.
Chazi, I turned in my last paper for that class I was taking yesterday, and I am spending the next 2 weeks on the road talking to people. So I'm going to go up to Sacramento and Medford, Oregon, and Olympia, and eventually Reno. So, yeah.
I'm going on tour.
I am. This is my 4th tour of this little corner. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. How do you like life on the road?
I love it. Honestly, I have to say these trips have been some of the best time I have ever spent in my entire life. Yeah. I mean, I drove all the way to Arkansas and back. I drove all the way to Indianapolis and back. And so this is barely. I'm just going up to Olympia and like Reno and back, so it's not that much. Which reminds me, I haven't actually had a mechanic look at my car in a very long time, so hopefully it'll go well. But yeah. I should have figured this stuff out. There's tons I should be doing, but I'd rather sit here and talk to you.
Oh, I'm flattered.
I will not be streaming on the road. So for the next 2 weeks, Chazi, you have to take over the Halachic Man book thing. I won't be able to do it. So either you or Yosef has to be there for the book thing. It's usually around 8. Yeah. I am not a morning person, and frankly, it takes me a couple of hours before my brain starts going. I woke up at 4 this morning, so that's why I'm actually awake right now. But like my brain, first 2 hours I'm awake. I'm not actually awake.
Yeah. I mean, I wake up and I'm in automatic mode for at least a half hour. That's usually between regular at 6:30 on days when I don't have to take my kids to school. Sometimes it'd be 7. But my kids wake up pretty religiously at 6:30.
Kids will do that to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I used to hate getting up early, but I found that once I committed to that, it became easier. And now I get really stressed out if I sleep past 7.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you, Chad?
Good. How are you guys? How was your week?
My week was insane.
Really? I haven't been able to catch much or any of this. I just saw you're on, and well, I'm kind of an addict, so I see things and I jump in. But so I'm actually rendering or uploading a video right now, talking about kind of what PVK was talking about in his video this morning. So,
which was the one that he was? I've been trying to catch up on PVK a bit, so I forget which one he came out with this morning. Was that the Jordan Peterson and global liberationism or something like that?
Yeah. Yep.
I haven't watched it yet.
I've not seen the whole thing. I just caught some of the beginning and just kind of excuse me. That's how a lot of the stuff I do is very impulsive. So I like, I'll see something and then I'll think about, well, I'll just kind of try to follow a thread. And so that's what I've done. So tell me about your week.
Well, last week, my kids had 2 days off of school on Thursday and Friday, so I took them to a water park. Stayed overnight. Yeah, I was expecting to have a little bit more leeway. I'm like, oh, water park, the kids will go have fun, and I can focus on other things. I was wrong about that. The kids wanted to do everything with me. So,
damn them. Did you go to the Dells?
No, we went to Great Wolf Lodge in Gurnee. So there's a Great Wolf Lodge near the Dells as well. We went a couple years ago when everything in Illinois was shut down, but Wisconsin was open. But it wasn't as nice. And I don't know if it wasn't as nice because it was during the pandemic and they just didn't keep up with things. Sure. Or if it's just not as nice of one. But
yeah. So during the pandemic, I went to Yosemite.
Oh, yeah. How was that? I've never been.
It was phenomenal. So you had to call ahead and schedule with the park or with the parks program. And so it worked out perfectly because they were only letting a certain number of people in to the park. And so, and then my wife was using this app called, it's like a traveler's app. It's called I don't know. I can't remember, Gypsy or something like that. And you can, wherever you go around the country to these national parks, you play Gypsy and it gives you kind of some historical background of this particular part of the park that you're in. And so we were there and listening to this Gypsy dude, and he said, at this portion of the park, you could be waiting up to 3 hours to get in.
Oh, wow.
Because of how congested it can be. But we didn't have any of that.
Oh, yeah. Because they limited the number.
It was awesome, man. And we got to see just it's stunning.
That's always been my preferred way of doing things, like going places where there's hardly anybody else at so I can enjoy them, like going to Great Wolf Lodge during the week instead of a weekend, so it's a little bit emptier. I've always wanted to do more road trips to places, like seeing the national parks and stuff like that, but I have no experience with that. I grew up,
right
in the ghetto of the West Side. We never went anywhere. And so I get a little bit overwhelmed with the details, like logistics.
Okay, I have to tell you, there is so much infrastructure and support from the government. You will be shocked. It may be the cheapest vacations. They are heavily subsidized. And so, definitely taking your kids out to national parks and stuff, driving trips. It's funny. This was one of the things that I've realized. The rural Republicans generally have no clue how much money from the cities is being pumped out into rural regions in ways that they just don't do the math. When you look at the actual money, the amount of money going from Los Angeles out to pay for Mount Rushmore and everything going on around Mount Rushmore. That was the really surprising thing when I got to Mount Rushmore and I saw all this money being spent in ways that people who aren't really aware of how government works were not aware that it was there and where it came from.
Yeah. So Mo, this is why we have wives. They can,
So, and that's the thing. So my wife did a lot of that stuff growing up, but she was, you know, it was kind of her parents did the planning. She never partook in that kind of stuff. And so, and both her and I, she and I work multiple jobs, and it's like the anxiety, especially of doing it with little kids. We've gotten overwhelmed. We're finally getting to the point where we really want to push ourselves to do stuff like that. So that's why we're thinking about going as a family to the Chino event. She's still a bit hesitant about the kids, but I'd like to take them. But it would be definitely out of my comfort zone, because the other aspect of it is, like, for example, camping. That always terrified me as a kid. Like, you know, put me in the gang-infested streets, bunch of guys in the corner, armed, whatever. I'm fine. I can hold my own there. But you put me in the woods, or you put pitch black at night. That's where all the scary movies happen. And it can sound silly, but that actually really does legit terrify me.
But this is Chino. The only thing you have to worry about is the state prison that's next door to the.
That's how every scary movie starts. You don't have anything to worry about here, and then all of a sudden, guy with a hockey mask comes out and.
But you know those state prison guys.
Yeah, maybe I can rely on their assistance to keep my family safe.
you know, they'll be helpful.
How's it going, guys?
Howdy.
How's it going?
Pretty well. Hey, Chad. It's Bart.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to say hi and say I'm a real person and I listen, you know, often. About to head to school. I just love seeing this all come together. Love hearing about your background, Mo, and just it's exciting to see it all go. I feel like just about everything that gets chatted about in this space like hits me in my life in some way, between Jacob's Jewish stuff, Chad's AA stuff, and your kind of urban background. It's just beautiful to kind of see it come together in this collaborative way. So I wanted to just introduce myself before driving out and stuff too. So I got to head to school.
All right, appreciate that.
Great to finally meet you officially.
Yeah, I'm a real guy. All right, love y'all. Take care.
Wow, that was crazy, man. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I like that.
Yeah, he's got some a couple of videos up on his channel. They're just kind of him with that background screen he had, and he's telling his story. And I always love hearing people tell their stories, even if it's just like, it could be like totally random meandering about stuff, and it's kind of soothing. At least like when I'm at work and I get to listen, it's kind of nice. But
yeah, it's interesting. So I used to be a sex ed teacher, and one of the things that I started using in teaching, like in urban schools, was just kind of having kids not only share like what they want to do in the future, but just sharing their stories. Because I remember when I first started teaching, I was being trained by a guy who would tell his story, all the different stories from his life all the time. And the first thing I thought when listening to him was, but your life is so much more interesting than mine. Like, I don't have these stories. But part of the reason that I didn't think I had stories was because I wasn't used to telling my stories. But once I started, I was like, oh, there are some interesting aspects of my life as well. And I run into people all the time. They're like, yeah, but my life isn't as interesting. And I was like, well, why don't you just start telling me about your life? And then I think there are so many people who don't think their life is interesting because they never actually get to tell their stories. Right.
And, they may not be particularly interesting, but there's something, I think, soothing about connecting to people's average lives. Like, because for me, one of the difficulties has always been settling into being okay with being average, I'm an average Joe. And like, the more I'm able to settle into that, the more I kind of feel at home in my skin and my own skin and stuff like that. I learned that in AA. I mean, they really heavily rely on people telling their stories. And so, yeah, I mean, because identification is huge. And, you could find identification in the strangest details of somebody's story.
Yeah, the aspect of that, like you hear somebody's story and just to resonate. Oh, and then I'm not alone in experiencing this.
Right.
Um, that becomes really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Howdy, Sandy.
How's it going, Sandy?
Of course, just as I logged in, somebody's vacuuming down the apartment hall, so I may mute at odd moments, but it's going well.
Sweet.
I had speaking to Jacob for 1 second about his reminder to Hezi and Yosef. Guess what arrived in the mail?
Mm.
Oh, wow. You're going to read Lonely Man of Faith too? That one's even harder.
I talked to my youngest son a little bit about this space in general, about the books I'm going through, and about just weird headspace because of I've talked to him before about so I'm talking to these people online, and one of them is this guy named Jacob, and he's Jewish, and he's got a Discord, and then I'm talking to this guy named Paul. Well, I don't really, but mostly and I'm on CRC Voices, and my son's he's cautiously open to me talking to him about past and about perspectives on things, because he says, well, you don't push. So it was kind of fun to, open my books because he needed to talk today. So, hey, Chad.
Hello.
You have so many great points. Is it weird to say I enjoy listening to you because my mom wouldn't let us go to Alateen when I was a kid?
Oh, wow.
No, absolutely would not. And my sister and I have talked about why were our friends a little bit more well-balanced than we were.
You think they were an Alateen?
No, they were the ones that invited us.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
But yeah, we didn't know. My mom was
Yeah. So if anybody out there is curious what Sandy's talking about, Alateen is kind of a sister program to a program called Al-Anon, which is a sister program to a 12-step program called Alcoholics Anonymous. There's also Narcanon, which is like a 12 sister program to people in Narcotics Anonymous. And what it is, it's a program for people who don't have addiction problems, but they're family members of people who do. And I think the basic understanding for me of all the 12-step programs, whether they're Alateen or Aladog, which doesn't exist, but at least I don't think it does. It might.
Coming soon to us.
Right. But the basic idea is, I think the one identifying factor in all of the 12-step programs is that each person deals with something called a spiritual malady, which basically manifests in a feeling of separation between, like, let's say me. One of the primary manifestations of a spiritual illness in my life is the separation I feel between me and my fellows, which inevitably causes the rift between me and God. And those things are kind of fluid. And so that's how I understand spirituality. So spirituality is a journey between me, my fellows, and me and God. And it's kind of interchangeable. Sometimes I might have where like the connection between me and God is severed, but my fellows might be able to act like something like a radio tower to get me connected back to God. And so that spirituality for me isn't something that can be practiced primarily and only in a vacuum in a room by myself. So like if all the praying and all of if I am in a room by myself and praying, it's really asking God to help me get out of the way so I could be useful to others and be in community with others. And that's it. And so that's how I understand all of the 12-step programs. It's really addressing this problem, a spiritual separation, conscious separation between me and God, which manifests in a conscious separation between me and my fellows. which manifests in all sorts of selfish ways like self-centeredness, fear, dishonesty, self-seeking behavior, all of that stuff. So that's just rundown.
That's interesting that how you framed that the necessity of spiritual connection between us and God, and us and our peers, our fellow people, as being important. That's been a big conversation my wife and I have had, just with the rise of evangelicalism, big churches. A lot of the language, even in the music, is always, it's very individualistic. Me and God, and we'll get together in this auditorium of thousands of people singing very individualistic songs, me and God, and how I feel about God. Very little about the thousands of people that I'm here with. The community aspect, where to a certain degree, liturgical worship ought to be vertical and horizontal together, and that's where the spiritual health comes from. So we've been thinking quite a bit about that and how to foster that. What we have tried to utilize as a potential solution is just in the songs that we singing songs. Like there's a song that we've tried to include, "Let Me Be Your Servant Too," and it's a song that we sing in church, not to God but to one another. That as Christ served us, we serve other people as well, and we sing that directly to you. So I'm not singing to God about serving my neighbor, I'm singing to my neighbor about serving them.
Yeah, Jacob, I think, has talked about this. The wounded, is it the wounded servant or the what is that, Jacob?
Suffering servant.
Suffering servant. Yeah. Because otherwise, I think what can happen is, and I've seen this manifest a lot in the culture, the language around self-love and self-care, and when that becomes kind of like the highest thing on the hierarchy, like your self-help programs and stuff, I think it's very self-centered, and then it's what the trouble with that for me is, it's just how is somebody who's in the bondage of self able to help somebody who's in the bondage of self? I can't, and it just becomes kind of like this suck, because that's my problem. Me on me, there's so much on me where I can't see you or God, and it's like I can, I don't have a problem with monasteries or anything like that. It just wouldn't have been for me. Or like a guy on a mountaintop sitting there going, oh, I mean, that's great if you can do that. Maybe that's your calling, but for me, it's I'm too.
Yeah, I think the goal is, to a certain degree, supposed to be the same. Like the idea of the monastery going off to meditate is to be able to drive out other voices in the world, so that when you are amongst your people, you can focus on them and their needs, and what God wants for their needs, not necessarily to just always focus on my own needs. Because the goal, I mean, we're created to be communal people, exist in a society, and so we're interdependent on one another. And I feel like a lot of people, or it's been popular these days, to lose sight of that.
Well, part of the problem is actually that the view we have of monasteries as being far away things where cloistered people never talk to anybody and take vows of silence and stuff like that, isn't actually how monasteries really functioned throughout most of history. They tended to be like religious centers where people could come and talk to and get guidance from people who spent a lot of time in contemplation and prayer, and they served as a sort of spiritual center. And I mean, a lot of how we view history is through certain narratives, which honestly, they're not as factual and objective as we like to think. And this is the postmodernist critique of modernism, and they have good critiques. Yes, there are all kinds of problems with modernism, and the question becomes, okay, what do you do with that? And unfortunately for too many people, the answer has become, nihilism and there's nothing I can do, and give up your hands. And it's like, we need to find a way forward. And yeah, I mean, smart people sitting around contemplating things, reading books, writing books, talking talky stuff is useful, but it's not for everyone, and it was never meant to be for everyone. I keep on going back to 1 Corinthians 12. You know, there are different parts of the body which do different things, and there's a sort of egalitarianism that is read specifically by certain people into Paul, which I think doesn't necessarily have to be there. If you're actually paying attention to 1 Corinthians 12, I think you take much more seriously the fact that even though we are all equal before God, that does not mean we are interchangeable things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, each one is valuable, but not each one does the same thing. And certainly each one cannot exist on its own. And I think that's why Paul continually comes back to the body metaphor, is that, yes, each of my hands is valuable. And even Chad, you can see this as a guitarist. My right hand as a guitarist and my left hand are equally valuable. I need both, but they do very different things. Unless you give me a left-handed guitar, I can't play it the same way as a right-handed guitar. It's going to be inferior to a certain degree. But that doesn't mean my right or left hand is inferior in that mechanism, because they are both completely different things.
Yeah, unless you're the demon Michelangelo Badio, who's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But he can't write good songs.
Which is the difficulty with a lot of really great guitarists. They can play amazing things, but they can't always write amazing songs. Mm-hmm. I'll never buy a Joe Satriani album.
Mm-mm. You know, there's this one dude. I'm sorry, saying it. There's this one guy. His name's John Gome. I don't know if you ever heard of him. He's got this song called Passion Flower. You got to watch it one of these times, Mo. It's I'm
gonna look that up, because the name rings a bell.
It's one of those things where you watch it. It's a visual experience to watch this person perform this song, because it's like this very virtuosic performance. But then if you were to just listen to it, you'd think, wow, that's a really great song. So it's one of those rare occasions. Yeah.
That's why I always tell people one of my favorite guitarists, and it's always controversial, is Slash from Guns N' Roses. Mm-hmm. And because I feel like when he solos, it certainly reminds me of Mozart, and the fact that he'll have these showy aspects of his solo that kind of say, yeah, I can do this fast stuff. But a lot of it is melodic. Mm-hmm. It's making, I can sing his solos. Mm-hmm. It's very melodic. And to a certain point, sometimes it gets slow and you're like, oh, that's not hard. And he'll throw in some difficult stuff just to say, yeah, I can do that. But right now I'm singing.
That's why I like Dave Gilmour.
Yeah, he's another good one.
Sorry, Andy. What were you saying now?
I don't exactly remember what I was saying. I'm actually thinking about paper clips now.
Right.
You were talking about sort of that self-centeredness of, and Jacob was talking about something right after that, and Mo, that reminded me of my conversation with my son. We were not talking about 1 Corinthians, no, but we were talking about some of the things that you guys were bringing up in that sense of the places where we are. And I hadn't really thought about the word nihilism before this year, because nobody really brought it up in life on a regular basis. But those places where, I know what I was thinking about when you started talking about that. I was thinking about my son when he was about 8 years old. He was super into the Redwall series of books and drove me absolutely batty because the parts that he loved the most, this was a series of books about some mice and some rats. And it was your basic, I don't know, who's the hero and, has the special sword and who's this and that. but in part of it, they lived in a monastery. The good guys did in this special one, and which is where he found the sword hidden from, ages ago and stuff. And he could have focused on all of that stuff, but what did he want me to read slowly in detail was all of the monks who worked in the kitchen and the gardens and the food that they grew and the meals that they created and the times when everybody would gather. And so I cannot hear the word monastery without thinking about Redwall and the mice and the monks and the gardens and the meals and the gathering places and just all of that stuff, and my son, and why that was so important to him. And it's funny because hospitality is also a word that I don't use a lot, but it comes up in that sense. And when I think about like here, we talk a lot about, people talk about philosophy and theology and politics and, all of those, whatever, isms and ists and whatever, words. But really grabs me is that place where people connect. Like there's one person on the Bridges of Meaning server who I've spoken with a few times, and often brings up sort of the same topic, no matter what topic's going. And we had a conversation where I was tossing some questions and answers back and forth, and was asked if anyway, a challenge was, well, do you want to talk about this? And I said, no, actually, I really have to go and clean my apartment. And the answer I got back was meat space is more important than whatever, I can't remember the alternative to meat space. It was like, just go do life. Go do the things that you have to do that are tangible in life. And so what you guys are talking about in a weird way takes me to those places. When I think about how we move forward, we can, like my son and I were, funnily enough, talking about Brain May. We're talking about sort of the Christian viewpoint and the Jewish viewpoint that I'd been sort of venturing into to discuss some of the current topics, and something that Jacob had said recently about, and that his dad said, his dad is very sola scriptura, and somehow somewhere that had come up in a topic and a thing about sort of going up the hierarchy of things that we find important and things that are valuable. Jacob, you gave some example of truth is important, but it's not necessarily the most important thing in some of the Jewish contexts on whatever it was you were talking about, how above that could be love and mercy and the, other attributes of God. Yes, of course, God is truth, and yes, his word is true. But even so, he is also merciful. He is also love in our relationship, in our walk, and the reason my son and I were talking about this is that thing of, you can get so focused on one aspect of something or one, whatever that impacts your life so much, is what my son and I were debating, that you kind of forget that, you just kind of forget, and so I was talking about that. And he brought that up again later in our conversation. Do you remember when you said this? We talked for like about an hour. And I was like, wow, because I'm still living in a place where I can say, hey, yeah, I'm maybe a little bit crazy, but I'm venturing into these Discord spaces where I'm talking to people talking about Jordan Peterson and the meaning crisis and this and this and this. And he actually explained to me what a top lobster meant and why Peterson's wrong scientifically. But anywho.
Just to clarify, when Sandy said Jacob's dad, she didn't mean my dad. She meant her son Jacob's dad.
Oh, yeah. Well, actually, it was the other son, but yes. I said to him, how come I'm surrounding myself by Jacobs? Like I have a lot of Jacobs in my life, but yes. So, yeah. You're a good person. We would probably adopt you, but I'm not sure you want to share dads with him anyway.
My dad would not like that.
No, I'm sure he wouldn't. But yeah, it's all goes. My mind is racing through what Chad shared about the different groups and how you can't just sit in a room alone and process all this, and then Mo bringing in, what does the right hand, what does the left hand, all of the tangible things that we do and the skills. And me talking to my son about his dad and his dad's take and the whole sola scriptura thing, as opposed to conversations I've also had with his dad about some of the things I'm talking about in Jacob's book club and other places. And I'm like, well, actually, it's really not necessarily your book club, but yeah. Yeah. Going forward, like whatever this thing is that we're all doing here. I came in at Jacob talking about sort of the other person's meat space, like taking the road trips, face-to-face encounters and stuff.
So Mo, what are we doing in this place? Like, vaguely, what's this mission statement you're thinking about? You don't have to tell us exactly.
I mean, a lot of it is that the whole idea of, I'm trying to, how I remember how I framed it a bit, but it's this idea of, pursuing that aspect of them, so to speak, of the conversation that we have are towards something that we believe is true, towards something that we believe is kind of the highest, so to speak. So kind of, at least as the organization that I'm developing, what we're trying to do is really, to use kind of religious language, serve this community of people who are really trying to figure out what they believe, are trying to engage in conversations around scripture, around wisdom, science, where they all kind of come together, meeting, and then also figuring out ways to embody that, so that it's not just this heady conversation, but there is an embodiment. There is we're breaking bread together, that we're doing stuff together. Like in Chino, apparently they're going paintballing together. But I think those aspects are equally important to the conversation.
I was at a Bible study on Wednesday, and there was a guy there who was he was talking about how, there's this coworker I have he's like atheist, and he's been in the church before, and he's like done this program and that program, and he's like asking me about, like, I don't know, we're talking about, I don't know, he's asking basically prove God or something like this, and it's like, and I was talking with this guy, and I was like telling him, like, and it's just a guess, but I'm guessing this guy has heard every kind of proposition that you could possibly throw at him. He's not stupid. He's explored lots of different things. He's probably not asking you to actually prove God. He's probably really asking you to spend time with him. He's, in other words, like, there's this part in Matthew 2, I think, where Jesus says something like, if somebody doesn't have clothes, or if they're not fed, don't just say to them, like, well, have a nice day and hope you're well and that you're fed or whatever. Like, actually give them something. Give them clothes and give them food, right? And so sometimes I think Christians, probably not just Christians, just people are okay with, let's say the atheist. I'm okay with trying to throw like propositions at him, thinking it'll feed him, when really I should probably just be spending time with him, like, and actually embodying to the best of my ability, love God. So, like, in other words, I don't know, a better way that I can basically explain this is, one time I was talking with my sponsor, and I was having an issue at home with my wife, and he says, what I want you to do is I want you to go home and I want you to tell your wife you love her, but you can't use words. And so I think that's the kind of thing that I'm interested in doing. How can I tell people that I love them, even if they're my so-called enemy? How can I do that without using words, and in a way that is genuine, that can be received, regardless of what I feel their beliefs are or not? And that, to me, is what this whole space has been about. I see Vanderklay doing it all the time. Like there's that recent video where he talked about it was an interview he did. I can't remember with whom, but he's like, I'm talking to a bunch of sheep who I know will not be corralled at any time soon. So why would I try to corral them? In other words, I have a different mission to meet them where they are, because they want to meet me where I'm at. So I don't know.
So certainly, what that reminds me of is just parenting, right? As a father, I am trying to love my kids in the best way I can, and so it involves me telling them every now and then I love you. It involves me doing stuff for them, like working and providing for them, giving them stuff, and it also involves me spending time with them. Being physically present, listening to them. There's all different kinds of ways to demonstrate that, and all of them are important. And many times we go with what's easy or what's less risky. For some people, saying I love you feels really risky. It feels really cheesy, and so we don't say it. Sometimes just sitting down and spending time with my kids. Well, what am I not spending time doing?
Right.
What research, what job, what money-making opportunity am I missing out on by spending time with my kids? And the idea of love always has an element of risk in it. You're sacrificing something.
But like, let's say if one of them came to you one day and said, "I'm just completely deconstructed, and like up to that point, you've given them all the information you possibly could," and I think this is why it's important to pay attention to our own experiences, like, because I don't think, well, sometimes I think we treat people as if they're just stupid, and that they, it's like, no, like their people have wrestled with this stuff deeply. And so at some point we have to recognize that the words that we've used, they're just not going to be sufficient. And so, like you said, it's the demonstration of love that's going to be more valuable in the long run.
And it's tricky, right? Because to a certain degree, this idea of truth being required for love. Like, in order for me to love my kids well, I need to know my kids well. Otherwise, I might be doing. I mean, I run into this all the time with ethnic minorities that have kids that hate them to a certain degree, and like, yeah, you never loved me. And the parents are like, "What do you mean? I spent your whole life working 3 jobs to try to put you in the best schools, to try to give you everything, so you don't have to live the life that I had to live. I did all that out of love." But the kids never experienced that out of love. They never experienced that as love, and the parents didn't take any time to figure out, well, what do my kids, how are they perceiving me? And so there has to be that, to love in spirit, love in truth, listening to people, knowing who it is that you're trying to love, is an important part of it.
This is an interesting place because this came out of Mo being asked the question about the mission statement that Jacob gave as a redirect, because I think he picked up that I was saying something, but I was a bit lost, which came from me listening to you talking about how you just don't do well with people. And yet seconds before, you had been reaching out as a conversation continued between you and Mo, or you and Jacob, that you had seen that I had something to say, and you didn't want me to think that you were stomping on it. You're incredibly good and gifted at that. And sometimes when I go back to what Mo's telling you about love and truth, I had the best conversations without any words at all sometimes with my partner. that I lost a year ago. And that's just, it basically came down to, we both have the same kind of play. We, you understand how to yank each other's chains. He reminds me of my youngest son I was talking to today. Whatever it is that we're doing right here, when I heard Jacob ask Mo about a mission statement and he used the word minister, I thought, yeah, like the monks in Redwall, who simply get up and go around tables serving people food because it gives them great delight to take what they have grown under the sun in a garden, into the kitchen, into some pots, pull it all together, go out to the people who they love to laugh with and give it to them. And that's what you guys are talking about in a way. That same place where everybody brings something to the table, and whatever we have to bring to the table is different, But so many times in this place has been acknowledged. I've seen it acknowledged. There is huge value in the people that are here. Putting it into words might be a bit of a challenge, but it's not, because we don't know what we're seeing. And I love that about this place. I've had more good growth in myself than I've had in the last 6 years, just from, butting heads with a few people and getting into things I've got no clue about, and having lobster synapses explained to me by my son. This is life.
Yeah, I'm gonna hop off pretty soon, but I guess my hope would be, and this is probably a real corny thing to say, but if anybody out there who's listening, if you ever find yourself wrapped up in self, where like it could look like resentment, it could look like just like confusion, or maybe low level anxiety or depression or something. One of the things that I found useful is very practical. Go for a walk around the block. If you find a piece of garbage, pick it up. Or if you really want to find like a place to harvest some usefulness, in other words, a place to practice gratitude, because gratitude for me isn't just what I think or what I say I feel. It's the actions I put into the world. Go to your closest grocery store or Walmart and just find the straggling shopping carts sitting out in the middle of nowhere. Just grab them and put them where they belong. And don't tell anybody you did it. And those kinds of things are nice little meditations on practicing gratitude. And I know it sounds like, wow, what the hell is that supposed to do? It's like, I don't know, give it a shot, see what happens. And those are the kinds of weird little things that my sponsors have taught me. And just like, they'll say things like, gratitude is an action. I don't care what you say, your feet are going to be moving so loud that I won't be able to hear a word you're saying. So those are all valuable things I'd like to pass on to people, because we're, especially in a space like this where people are really interested in ideas. It's like, yeah, take them and act them out a little bit. So I'm going to get running, but thank you guys.
Real quick before you go, Chad.
Yeah.
Where did you see this posted? To jump in today.
I saw your channel on my news feed.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, because I'm trying to get things pushed to the Randos United channel, so if people want to always know that this is going to happen, you probably want to subscribe to that.
Okay. Yeah.
Where is that? Because when you ask where Chad put it, my phone gives me a pop-up notice, but it doesn't necessarily tell me unless I touch it on that page where the pop-up shows how to find something. And I can't comment or anything on my phone. It won't let me most of the time. I don't know if I've changed settings or if it's just that sometimes I'm listening at work and they've got a weird locking system to stuff. So what is Randos United?
So I believe you went on YouTube and peace chat. Went on YouTube and just searched Randos United. You would find the Randos United channel and you can subscribe.
I will try that on my phone so I can see if it works and tell you if it's letting me do it there. But yeah. And did I interrupt your
I just wanted to. So in the past, that every time I've done this, I've just basically sent it also to Jacob's channel, and so anyone who's following Jacob's channel, it gets that notification. But what happens is then people start to think that this is all about Jacob, and I don't think that's. I'm pretty sure Jacob doesn't want that. And so,
sorry,
Jacob was a bit of the initiator of this, and that's great. But
yeah, this is one of the things. I'm trying to get the Just Chatting stuff off my channel, because like my channel is my channel, and it's about other things than being some sort of hub. Like I don't mind the fact that, for example, Mark streams 7 to 9 hours when I don't, but like his channel is his channel and my channel is my channel, and they're very different. And I don't want to have to deal with being in any way responsible for his content.
So one of the things I've struck as somebody who only really connected to any of these places in December, I think it was. I don't have a standard in through, Peterson, or like, I just kind of hopped in because, yes, found it.
Yeah, it's important to note it is the new Randos United channel without the numbers.
What numbers?
There is an older one, and yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay, no, yeah. I had subscribed to one with 744 subscribers, and I just subscribed to one with 13 subscribers. Is that what was being pointed out by Stephanie?
Well, the one that had 13 subscribers also, when you look at the channel info, it's just called Randos United. That's part of the reason we've been looking at. I mean, Jeff, I don't know what Mo and Jeff have been talking about in terms of whether to use the old channel or the new channel, but one reason to use the new channel is it's not Randos United 5278 or something, which is what the other one is.
Oh, neither of them showed up that way in the current search I just did on the phone.
Right. That's not how it shows up on the search, but that's what the user ID is. Okay. But for YouTube purposes, which is the problem.
This is probably very helpful information for people who are also going to be searching it because, yeah. Okay. And the reason I usually try to find it through your site, Jacob, has been because the only sites I knew about were your site and Bridges of Meaning, which really isn't, I mean, it sort of lives in that not Paul's zone. And because it had to do with what he was doing but didn't want to do. So, and I'm like trying to track all of that as somebody that's fairly new. And then it has, it must have like 50 different links down the thing or something. So trying to figure out where to even look for a notification, unless I already knew where to look for a notification, was impossible. So yeah, I've been using sort of you as a hub to go, please help me figure out what's going on because I don't know. Yeah. So thank you, Stephanie.
All right, guys. Well, I have to jump on another phone call. You guys can do whatever you like to do, but you guys have a wonderful day.
I'm calling a friend to go for a walk.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to end the stream.
Sounds good.
Have a great day. Thank you.
You too.